Henry Nowak being killed by a brown Sikh foreigner in Henry's own homeland, being England, Britain, is not a glitch. This is not an act, this is not like an unforeseen, accidental consequence of mass immigration of third world countries into these first world nations. This is not some unintended result. This is deliberate. This is a design of the system. And how do we know that? Well, it's because it's all part of what's called the Kalergi strategy. That's what's on display. And it's a historical pattern that has played out several times over again with other past empires. This has happened in Rome. This has happened in many other empires that rose to prominence and then were eventually on the decline and collapsed altogether. Foreign invaders are amongst one of the most prominent indicators of a declining empire or of a declining civilization. But this is being done intentionally. And that's what we need to understand first. It's not even an isolated incident or unique phenomenon occurring in the UK, by the way. This is happening in every first world Western civilization to varying degrees right now. And that's how you know it's intentional. Take a look at all of the homelands and countries of origin of where these foreign immigrants and these illegal aliens come from. And look at the demographic of what's going on there. Look at their immigration to see. What you'll notice is they are eager to get to countries like England and France and Germany and America and Canada. But people from America and Canada and France and England and Germany are not flooding in to countries like India or Pakistan. They're not moving deliberately to countries like Iran or Mexico or Africa or China. And in some cases, it's because some of these countries have very rigid and strict immigration policies, believe it or not, and they wouldn't allow that anyway. But even if they did, I guarantee you, you would not see a mass migration of white people, of white Europeans, eager to live in any of those countries. But conversely, what you see are tons of third world people eager to move and take advantage of the system that has been set up deliberately to undermine Western civilization. And they're eager to fill these lands. And this is being weaponized against the Western civilization and first world nations right now, and it's being done on purpose. The Kalergi strategy is real. And so if you can't understand that, then you can't move forward with my explanation here. But this is very intentional. And that's the foundation of all of this, is understanding this. Understanding that specifically in America, where I'm the most educated on, we've seen the same system be set up intentionally here. Starting in truth with Emma Lazarus in 1883, the Jewish poet who wrote her poem, The New Colossus, that ultimately wound up being engraved on our Statue of Liberty about 20 years later in 1903, and was done so to intentionally change the symbolic meaning of our Statue of Liberty from a statue that symbolized the freedom and power of our republic and of our country, and changed it to a meaning of a woman welcoming immigrants from all lands. And then in addition to that, we get the Russian poet who wrote the book The Melting Pot, who goes on to describe America as a melting pot of civilizations and of ethnicities that all come together and harmonize, and the ethnicities, the varying immigrants from around the world come in, and they all melt into the American melting pot, according to the theory of that Russian writer, the Russian Jewish writer, The Melting Pot, which is a lie. That's not how it plays out. But all of this is used then to put forward acts like the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 and the Immigration Act of 1990 by George H.W. Bush. And these were all done intentionally. And what we've seen is massive demographic shifts in our country ever since. And I'm going to get into a little bit more of that later, but it all goes without saying that it's being done intentionally. And that's why, most importantly, the messaging that I want to put forward here, and the first and most important lesson that we can take from the Henry Nowak situation over in the UK, is that nationalism is crucial for the survival and success of nations. Nationalism. Thank you for the $2 super chat tariff, Michael Cox. Appreciate you. Nationalism is vital, and that's the first lesson here. But nationalism for predominantly white and Western countries is not only discouraged, but it's also demonized. And that's the first hurdle that we have to jump over as Americans, or that the British need to jump over. It looks like they're getting ready to make that jump if you pay attention to just how active they are now in their own country. We're seeing mass protests in the street. We're seeing white people rising up, flying their Union Jack flags, protesting the invasion of these foreign illegal aliens in their country, protesting the very obvious and blatant demographic shift occurring in Britain and in the UK right now. And now, over the result of this Bodycam being released, there were massive protests taking place in the streets of Britain yesterday. So it looks like they're getting ready to make the jump, but they're hanging on more of a thread right now, by more of a thread than we are currently here in America. Things are still just a little too comfortable for us to be doing what's happening in Britain right now. But that's really the first thing happening right now, and understanding that, again, for if you're in a white nation, if you're in a first world nation, and you talk about being a nationalist, that is instantly demonized. You are demonized for even saying that word. And that's why we need to move forward with it regardless. And we need to speak openly about such problems. And we need to speak openly about concepts like nationalism and embrace it openly and proudly. We must destroy the narrative that nationalism is demonized for white people, because it's also by design. And you'll recognize this. There is no criticism for black nationals. There's no criticism for Mexicans who fly their flags in our Los Angeles city streets in protest of Trump and in protest of ICE and illegal immigrants. They fly their flags and they're nationalists for Mexico while living in our country. And there's no demonization for that. They're allowed to be proud of their country culture and of their way of life. They're allowed to be proud of all of that, and they're allowed to be Mexican nationalists. And what you'll see with black people is they'll celebrate their country of origin, where they can trace back their genealogy to Africa, and they're allowed to be proud of that. And the Chinese people, they're extreme nationalists. They're raised to be that way, and you'll never see it demonized. It's expected, actually. But when a European nation, when white people decide that they're going to be nationalists, they're going to be an American nationalist like I am, well, all of a sudden, that comes with all kinds of misnomers and all kinds of stereotypes. Oh, you must be a neo-Nazi. Oh, you must be one of those fake Christians. Oh, you can't be serious. You must be a white supremacist. I'm an American nationalist. Hi, this is American Advocates. I'm of German and British descent, but I am a fifth-generation American nationalist. I am a Christian and proud, and I live and love in my country. I live in my country, America, and I love it. Nice to meet you. It's really that simple. And that's what needs to emerge first and foremost. White people and Western nations uniting for a cause is the only thing that terrifies the elites. And that's why they demonize it so harshly. They're not concerned about Africans rising up. First of all, it won't happen. They war with each other. They kill each other. They're an undeveloped nation. They're exploited for their diamond wealth and resources, and they're not developed enough to even resist it. They're not worried about that. They're not worried about Indians rising up and becoming too nationalistic and unifying. Doesn't matter. They're not worried about Mexicans doing that either. In fact, the Mexicans, when they unite, they tend to form what? Cartels and sell drugs. They're not worried about that. That's a good thing for them. Those drugs seep across our border and kill more Americans. It's actually good. But they certainly aren't going to be able to ever unite in any sort of anti-establishment, anti-elite system and fight back. Which ethnicity or which group of people, which demographic terrifies them? What's the real threat? It's white people, European nations uniting together and rising up together in a unified manner to push back and fight the system. Because every time that happens, history is made. Rome was built. The Crusades took place. Colonization of these American lands. Colonization itself, which is demonized and shouldn't be. We tamed these savage lands. We eradicated the indigenous savages of these lands that scalped our people, that raped our women, that murdered and sacrificed our children. And we've colonized it and turned it into the most prominent, powerful first world nation in the world. And that's what white people do. We rise up and we rebel against the establishment. It's why America was founded. And it's also why America separated over time even further from our origin over a tax, over a 3% tax. And that's what terrifies the elites. And that's why all of this has been demonized. And that's why we are now in the position that we're in. This is a Zionist psyop system that has been set up. Emma Lazarus, Israel Zwingli, I believe is his name, the Russian book writer of The Melting Pot. Lyndon Baines Johnson, 1965's Immigration and Nationality Act. George H.W. Bush, the 1990 Immigration Act that ushered in the H-1B visas. And in addition to all of this, the liberal education system, which was rewritten by Ghislaine Maxwell's father, and in many cases also was influenced by, again, Zionism and controlled by liberalism, which is the ultimate tool of Zionism. Liberalism spreads concepts like feminism and globalism and sexual liberation, and it destroys the family unit. It destroys the nuclear family. It demoralizes men. It keeps men weak, American men. It keeps us weak. And over the course of time, the liberal education system was overhauled and radically altered to begin teaching and instilling what we now refer to as white guilt. Colonization was demonized. Our Christian religion has been ridiculed. Our values and way of life have been laughed at. We've been told we have no culture. How many times have you heard that as an American? You're an American, you have no culture. You like hamburgers? That's from Hamburg, Germany. You like hot dogs? Where do those come from? You like pasta, spaghetti? That's from Italy. That's what they'll tell you. They don't talk about NASCAR. They don't talk about American football. They don't talk about WWE wrestling, Hollywood, which some of it is also even a problem to begin with, in all honesty. But they ignore the actual real culture. They ignore everything that's special about America, and they want you to believe that you have no identity. They want you to believe there is no culture in America. And they want you to continue pushing forward and believing in white guilt. You're a colonizer. You're scum. You destroy people's way of life, and you replace it with these Western societies that you claim are free. I mean, I look around at our modern cities that were built by Italian bricklayers and that were built by German ditch diggers, that were built by British people and Europeans alike, these lands settled by Europeans, and I see greatness. That's what I see.